G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and here we go, straight into the drama in this one here. As we enter the first slot, this is Nations Cup, we'll talk about everything later of course. Disconnected from the network. This was the first slot at 6 o'clock at night, and we'll see just how long I have to wait for the next one. And yeah, I don't know what's going on recently, but yeah, we're back to the main menu. We've missed our slots, 5 o'clock in the evening. Have a look, we got an hour and a half to wait, so it was really frustrating that when I disconnected, but had a shower, made dinner in the interim. Maybe I should have cooked a vindaloo curry, that would have been good. But we join the session now. We get into the second slot, lovely, and I'm in top split, down in 9th, which is actually not bad. Being the 9th best DR rated player in top split isn't that bad at all. It just means I have to do better than 9th. We're going to come out for qualifying, and we've seen the combination now. It's the Mini Cooper race that was done at Kyoto Driving Park, Miyabi. And this is the qualifying session. Now, this combination is a Slipstream festival. So, basically, get your Slipstream party hats on, because that is what we're celebrating here today. Now, I knew I had to get behind somebody very quick, and I found the two PX7 drivers that are in top split Oceania. Very quick drivers here, so we're going to try and grab the Slipstream off these two, because I know they're going to help out each other, and if I could just be off the back of that, that would be very helpful indeed. We come into the final real corner of the circuit. It's actually turn 4, there's still 3 other corners to go, but we actually get overtaken around the outside by Codes on the start of the qualifying lap, and that really put me off, because as you can see now, I think I'm out of the Slipstream. These cars are so slow, so the physical gaps are a lot smaller, even though it's the same amount of time. But I'm sure that gap is more than 3/4 of a second, so I actually don't have Slipstream for my lap. So that is no good at all. But we'll go through a quick lap guide. We're going to get a bump from the car behind. Turn 1 is this very long right-hander, all flat out. You get all 4 wheels on the curb, and the car gets pulled around very nicely, but don't cut it by touching the grass. Coming down through turn 2, this is a very shallow chicane, I guess you could call it. Turn 3, flat out still, just use the curbs to help pull the car around the corner, and then coming up into turn 4, looking on the left hand side is just the white line halfway along the entry curb to turn 4, and then we just try and get onto the power as early as possible, and then coming down through this final triple chicane, turn 5, turn 6, and then turn 7 is this right-hander out onto the straight, all flat out of course, so a 1 braking zone circuit, this one in this car here. We're going to come across the line. It's going to be a 56.8, which is not fast enough. Long story short, you can see Code's got himself a 55.0. So what I decided to do here is these 2 cars behind me, I decide to just feather the throttle. I have enough time to sort of bin off this lap and go for it on my next lap, which will be the end of this lap, if that makes sense. But I just thought I'll get behind one of these cars that are currently behind me, and that is exactly what I did. So Iron Mask moves in ahead and then slots in behind No, This Is Jester. So Iron Mask still has a good slipstream for his lap. I now have a slipstream for my lap. It is all good, and you can see, of course, being a very, very short circuit, the qualifying is very close, so if I improve by even as little as half a tenth, I could potentially go up a handful of positions. I make a bit of a mistake, or I guess Iron Mask makes the mistake and sort of gets a bit out of shape on the curbs, and I end up going through, giving Jester a little bump on the entry to turn 4, and I just felt as though he broke a little bit early, but no harm done. We've still got a good slipstream up to the line, but then I stupidly cut the final corner, like, you bloody idiot. And I was going to improve as well. As we come across the line, we see the lap would have been a 56.4, a 4/10 improvement. Very frustrating. I was absolutely fuming, and of course, being FIA, we've got the penalty gates, which I would have served on this lap here, and that would have ruined it. So I got out of the way and did not give anybody else slipstream. And let's see, if I improved by 4/10, that would have put me somewhere much higher up the grid there. But as for now, let's just enjoy the Nations Cup introduction. Lovely as always, we meet ourselves on the grid. Look at this. Throwback to Mini Madness. I mean, this is what this reminds me of. Do you remember Tidgney's very first community championship? Mini Madness. I did take part in it. The videos are way back in my channel, and they were done as the old pure race format that I haven't really done for a while. Maybe I should bring it back. If you're a fan of the pure races, if you just like the sounds of the racing, please do let me know, and I could potentially bring those back. But let's start here. Standing start, which I think is the best choice for this. There is no reason a rolling start would have been any good at all. And we launch off the line. Joshua gets a very poor start at the back and is already out of Slipstream, so that's his race over for now. Although potentially if there's some fighting he can get back into it. But this race is once again Slipstream Festival, so we want to be aiming for the lead. Eyes are on the lead at the moment because at the start of the race all the cars are together. There's no real reason a car way behind can't get themselves up the grid throughout the race. There's definitely a possibility for that, so there's no reason someone even as far down as me should be fighting, and that is what I want to make absolutely paramount in the forefront of my mind, and I'm absolutely praying that all of the other competitors can see the same thing. As soon as a fight happens anywhere up the grid, in fact, it will split the grid. If a fight happens in the middle, the pack will split because the people fighting will run slower than the people ahead of them and break the slipstream, and that wrecks the chances of a good result, i.e. a podium, for the entirety of the grid behind the people that decide they want to fight. And we can see immediately at the start of this race, we've got, 3 wide heading down the main straight, heading up through turn 1. But turn 1 is flat out, but I can already see gaps forming, so this is not good in terms of the fight for the victory here. There's absolutely no reason even a slower driver can win this combination. Sorry, no reason they can't win this kind of combination, just because it doesn't actually require that much skill and precision to get these cars around a track here. But it's getting a bit argy-bargy all through this fast chicane here, and everyone gets all unsettled and comes back across the track, and I'm pushed off into the grass, into the wall. A little bit of contact and dirty tyres, and basically I just did not want to lose the toe. Thankfully we've got the braking zone of the track coming up, and it just slows everyone up enough for me to keep into the slipstream. But there's a gap up ahead. That's probably a gap between probably 8th and 9th. That has definitely split open, and the slipstream is gone. 2 penalties up ahead, so I didn't like this either because these 2 people would slow down, and I wasn't sure if I was within slipstream range of Cedar's GT or Cedar's Proud GT, and I really wanted to be in the slipstream, so I knew I had to have a good lap. So I've gone for the qualifying turn 1, although the car just wanted to wander wide a bit, because these people are going to serve these penalties on the exit of the final turn, exit of turn 7 out onto the main straight, so they're going to break the gap in front of me, and at the moment it definitely does not look like I'm in the slipstream of Cedar's Proud, which is the dark green Mini Cooper, currently inhabiting is that 14th position. But here we go. Penalties are getting served. FIA punts are okay, quite ironically goes for a dive onto Cedar's Proud GT, which did not make much sense to me, as he was about to serve a penalty and has just slowed everyone up. So thanks very much for that, mate. But we'll come across or come through the penalty gates, and Rosmo was the other driver, and FIA punts are okay. That's actually GT Sport penalty. He's changed his name again. But they served their penalties, and actually it's not worked out as bad as I thought, because the rest of the pack kind of swamped us thanks to FIA punts are okay going for the move at the final corner. Everyone kind of swamped us, and we managed to stay in the same pack. But now I want to tactfully and carefully work my way up to the front of this pack, because you can see the gaps are broken now. There's no way I can win. The best I can kind of look at is 13th at this stage, although potentially I could catch some stragglers out of the back of the pack up ahead. And obviously anyone making mistakes as well, I can make up positions that way. Although I shouldn't rely too much on making mistakes. It's a fairly easy car to drive. There's not that many pinch points on this circuit, so I shouldn't really expect to see too many people crashing, but obviously I shouldn't speak too soon, I guess. But we are equalised in 17th at the moment. Now, basically, on the upcoming to this race, all of the lead up, the build up to this race, the main question on everyone's minds was, why is this a Nations Cup race? This gives me Daily Race A memories. This gives me mini madness memories and daily race A memories. I kind of tend to agree. I don't really see why this is a Nations Cup. There's no strategy involved, and basically the tyre and fuel are no issue at all, whatsoever. In fact, you barely get any tyre wear at the end of the race. So there's really not much skill involved, and especially if you're racing for a competition, I don't really understand why you would put a race with next to zero skill needed, but that's what they've decided to do, and it actually turned out to be an okay combination. The qualifying time trial was certainly a fun exercise. But we'll just come back to the race action now. We go up the inside of Rosmo and the outside of FIA punts, and we managed to split them actually, and then coming through turn 1, do I manage to get into this gap in between FIA punts are okay and Rosmo? I really wish he had a shorter name. What should I call him? FIA or FIA punts? We'll call him punts for now. But we managed to get up into 16th, so making the position up on the mini, we went up the inside down the main straight, and we're now got ourselves in a very nice comfortable gap to punts ahead, who in turn has a nice comfortable gap to Cedars Proud GT. So this is what I prefer to see, is a bit of a slipstream train and give cars in the train the opportunity to lap a little bit faster and catch up. I think that's the best thing to do, whereas if everyone's all compressed together in a battle pack, that's when you lose time. Whereas like this, we're all just in a train, just following one another with no fighting, we're actually gaining time, and that is what we need. And we'll have a look up on the minimap there. You can see it's a fairly similar story all the way up the grid. There is 1, 2, 3, 4 distinct groups, and then one straggler behind us who's just running out of slipstream range of GTP Legend. But this pack is getting a little bit closer, so turn 1 is actually a very good spot where you can actually make a big gain. Everyone kind of bunches up, because having the slipstream versus not having the slipstream through turn 1 is quite a big difference. The biggest difference on the track, I would say. The slipstream actual gain down the straight isn't that big, just because these cars don't have the downforce work or aero components to make the slipstream really effective, but it does work. But through turn 1 is the main point, because this is where turn 1 is where this car scrubs off its rolling speed, and if you can have a slipstream while you're in that sort of loaded up phase of the track, so while the car is loaded up and struggling to do what you want it to do, having a slipstream to help you can really benefit, and that's what we're seeing here. So there's just a bit more jostling for position here. You can see this is Jester runs a little bit wide, and Punts follows him. I'll keep it on the curb, and you can see we actually make a gain, having followed Punts, who is looking around the outside of turn 2. It's going to be the inside for turn 3 and the inside for turn 4, provided that Jester doesn't get that position, but unfortunately Punts just understeers a little bit too much, and once again has to fall in behind Jester, who runs defensive into the final corner. I'm not really going to go for that move there, and he runs a little bit deep. Gives me the potential for an undercut through the corner, or switch back. I've got to remember, cut back. That's the word I'm looking for. I do it all the time, don't I? I have to remember cutback. Remember cutback. That's the word of the day, cutback. But there we go, we get up the inside of Punts, and we managed to run side by side through the final chicane there, which is fair driving or fair play for the both of us. But we get into the slipstream of Jester, and Punts just has to pull in behind, in between myself and Cedars Proud, and we managed to take this very nice line through turn 1. Look at that, 4 wheels on the curb, although it's now 2 as I've slipped off, but you can see the curb has a crest down the middle. If you can get your right hand tyres on the right hand side of that crest, your car is just going to sail around the corner for days. And that was the key to a fast qualifying time too. But we're just going to follow this as Jester down the hill at the moment. I'm not really looking to fight him too much. If the move presents itself, I'm going to go for it to give myself an opportunity to make some pace and catch up, because I'm running much slower than my ultimate pace at the moment. I have Cedars Proud trying to go up the inside there. Not really too impressed by that move there, because it's just slowing us all down. But I got the inside for turn 6 here, and that translates beautifully to myself keeping 14th. So once again, behind this is Jester. We're just going to get into the slipstream at the moment. So this is what I mean. The slipstream is not that strong when you're running down a straight line. As you can see, I'm just slowly and very gently bumping his rear bumper there. And here we go. I managed to go for the move this time. So this is Jester not quite taking the optimal line. You can see exactly how this curb translates into faster pace as Jester gets overtaken by myself, and Cedars Proud loses 2 positions just by not taking the curb. So the curb is really important. The curbs, plural, are really important on this track, because this curb and the previous curb all help the car turn, and then this curb on the entry to turn 4 helps the car turn in as the car swivels off the sort of round surface of the curb there. But now we're in pursuit of Meta 7 Gear, Metal Gear I'm going to just call him, because the actual Metal Gear is not in this race, so there's no confusion to be made. We managed to stick ahead. Now, the next question for me is, well, I guess the next question for you is, how do you manage to stay ahead when you're at the front of the Slipstream train? And I'm going to show you exactly how I did it for basically the majority of this race from here on. So I'll just take this line through turn 1, 4 wheels on the curb, but trying to keep the car as close to the inside as possible. That helps pull the car around, which is lovely. A central line down the hill here, and then I'm just slowly fading over to the left here. The left is very good for helping stop a move from around the outside on the exit of turn 1, and then this line here, and then into the final corner. We'll have a look behind. He's right behind me. Could go for the dive on the inside, but I just stick it onto the racing line, and if I so needed, I would go faintly defensive just to stay ahead of the pack, because I definitely feel as though I can be running faster out the front of my own rather than being stuck behind people. I definitely felt as though I could be better at the head of the train than sort of in the carriages of the train. So, come across the line here, it's my actual fastest lap of the race, a 57.014, and it just goes to show I definitely needed to be at the head of this train. And we're now in the slipstream of we're looking for the slipstream of Metal Gear at the moment. It's definitely going to be interesting to see whether we can actually catch further positions up. We've got the whole pack behind, the whole swarm that we've slowly worked our way through the course of this race. They're all behind us, ready to capitalise on any mistakes, but as long as I can keep my car exactly where I want it, they're going to struggle to get past. And I'm just looking up ahead. We've got 8 laps to go, and I'm in the looking for the slipstream of Metal Gear and Inksile GTR. Shout out to him, he is one of my good racing mates there, and they're actually all fighting behind. A 3-way battle into the final chicane behind me, and that just opens up the gap to about 3/10. We skip ahead, and we've actually got into the slipstream of Metal Gear, and we'll see how quickly we can get this move done now, because we're on lap 14 out of 20. Into the braking zone, he's got bump draft printed across the back of his car, and you can see we've actually gone for that move already at turn 4. And we get that move done already, and he's got a 3/10 gap, so there's really no stress in terms of another return move later. This was the that was the status of the race. It remained status quo up until the final lap, where I finally got into the slipstream of Inksile. I was slowly catching, setting some 56s, a 56.5, fastest lap on lap 14, very quick. We managed to get into the slipstream of Inksile. I know there's one more position to be gained. I've got to make sure I do it cleanly, however, because I know this guy. Not that I would ever make a dirty move on anyone, whether I knew them or not, but it's especially important here to keep this rapport I've got with Inksile. So I'm going to give him a bump here and potentially try and go for the move at the final corner, but I think Cedar's Proud GT has the same idea on me and goes up the inside and tries to go up the inside of Inksile as well. Gives Inksile a little bump and then moves his way through. I try to get the cut back there, and then I've got another car, Metal Gear, makes his way through and just tries to pit maneuver Cedar's Proud GT. I have to cut the chicane there, but there was contact, so I avoided a penalty. And you can see Cedar's Proud is now trying to run Metal Gear off the road, so very questionable tactics there. But ultimately, we managed to just stay where we were in 12th. We were not able to get past Inksile. So, bit of a spicy end to that race there, and I'm just going to touch on quickly, I definitely don't like to see that argy-bargy there. I think it's definitely good to be the bigger man and not retaliate in that kind of situation, but that's what went on there. 147 points. Yeah, I wasn't happy, basically. I knew I had to go again, and we're now at the 3rd slot. Remember, I disconnected from the first one, so we're at the 3rd slot of the night now, and we'll see exactly what happens with the matching. You can probably already guess what's happened because I don't normally show this part, so obviously something happened here, and you've probably guessed it already. A disconnect. GT Sport, Gran Turismo Sport, the real disconnect simulator. That's what we're running with here. And I can say at the time of commentary, I've now done another race. I forget what it was, the Toyota GR-GT Cup, the Yaris race at Fuji. There's also a Disconnect Festival, and we'll talk about that in its video there. But there's obviously, I don't know what they're doing. I've put together some very strongly worded tweets about the situation I'm in at the moment, having disconnected from literally 2 of the 3 slots we have, giving me essentially a 1-shot in what should be a 3-shot session, and the Toyota GR GT Cup is even worse because you have 2 slots. Imagine if you disconnect from both of those. Yeah, you wouldn't be happy, and as it turns out, I'm not. But here we go. So I had to stick with my result, and what actually I thought was going to happen is I was going to lose my 147 points and pick up a fat 0 for that round there, but thankfully, because I disconnected during the matching, or before the matching even happened, I'm sure in the game's eyes it doesn't think I tried to enter the 3rd one because it didn't successfully connect, obviously, and I managed to keep my 147 points. So while it's not a stellar result, it is something to fall back on in the case I do get a load of zeros in the latter part of this season. But there we go, that was the Nations Cup round. It's actually the potential of a very good race, however the qualifying was important, so the fact that I cut the chicane on my very fast qualifying lap was definitely my downfall in this race here. I definitely could have picked up a very healthy point gathering result for that round there, but didn't quite happen. Didn't quite go to plan. But as always, I like to bring the good as well as the bad, just to kind of show the progressive chronicles of my FIA campaign. But that's going to finish up this one today. Do hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.